The town was slowly getting dark as the sun began to set. Ushijima was still running. As he headed back toward Shiratorizawa, he kept his eyes on the road to make sure he didn't run into anybody. But as his left hand came into view, his mind drifted back to his childhood days. The fact that he's different from other people will probably end up being his strength. Ushijima quickly shook the thoughts away, and when his eyes landed on the road before him, he tried to stop himself in time before crashing into you. Luckily, you were able to dodge his fast running and came to a stop. "I'm terribly sorry," you apologized and was out of breath. Being on the track team at your school, you were used to heavy breathing. Ushijima shook his head and recognized the colors on your tracksuit. "You're in Shiratorizawa's track team?" he questioned. You chuckled and nodded. "Yeah, and you are?" "Ushijima, volleyball team's captain," he simply said. You widened your eyes. It was the Ushijima before you, the one who led the volleyball team to nationals 3 years in a row. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you." You bowed and smiled. For a second there, Ushijima felt his heart beat. "I have to get going or my team is gonna murder me." You jokingly laughed. "I'm always the first one back to school, so it would be weird if I showed up after them." You bid goodbye to Ushijima before taking off. He stared at your back figure as it disappeared into the distance. He quickly remembered he needed to return back to the gymnasium and begin running off back to school as well. After that day, Ushijima had somehow met eyes with you among the various students at Shiratorizawa. He had never spotted you before, and now after that meeting, he suddenly saw you almost everywhere. You would wave and greet him here and there, but the conversations never got past that. Ushijima was not a talkative person, and you were always busy running around. It wasn't until your figure stopped showing up to school. Everywhere Ushijima went, his eyes were looking for your small figure in the crowd, but he spotted nothing. Curious, he wanted to know, but then he realized he never caught your name or what class you were in. He wanted to stop by the track team's practice spot, but never had the time due to his strict practices. The days went by and still no sight of you at all. Ushijima thought maybe you moved and transferred to a new school, so he didn't bother expecting anything anymore. Although he did feel a bit gloomy about it, he pushed the feelings aside. By now, Shiratorizawa had already made it past the semifinals and was going for the win. Before the big day, their strict coach allowed a day off. Ushijima needed to catch up on his assignments anyway and headed for the library. As he entered and went to look for an open spot to sit at, he saw the figure whom he had wanted to see for a long time now. His heart was beating fast without him realizing it. It was clearly you sitting at a table across from him. He was lost for a second, but somehow he felt a small joy feeling up inside him. Ushijima made his way towards you and was about to ask why you were gone for so long when he saw what happened. You moved back from the table and was heading to get another book. That's when you stopped and locked eyes with Ushijima. What happened? The question escaped from his mouth as he looked at you, sitting in a wheelchair. You stared at your legs and chuckled. I got lucky. I don't usually pay attention, and I got myself into the road of a running car. Ushijima didn't know what else to say to you but to stare at you. You were smiling, but somehow it felt forced. It's been a while, huh? You chuckled and moved closer to him. No practice today? Homework. Ushijima replied, showing you his textbook and assignments. You nodded. I guess I should leave you alone to finish it. You excused yourself and moved around him. He turned around, following you. You stopped and glanced back. Yeah? Your name, he said simply. You tilted your head in confusion before realizing what he meant. You chuckled and nodded. It's Lnfn. He repeated and felt a sudden rush of joy. You nodded and bid goodbye before leaving to put the library book away and off to find a new one. Ushijima, on the other hand, took a seat nearby, and while finishing up his assignments, he would glance at you from here and there to see how you were doing. You would roll around, finding various books from the lower shelves and read them. Most of them were medical books, about muscles and nerves within the human body. Ushijima saw you eyeing the higher shelves, but knew you didn't want to burden anyone on getting it for you. He got out of his chair and made his way toward the aisle you were at, and pretended to look at a book before speaking out. Is there a specific book you need? He didn't glance at you at all. You stopped in your tracks and looked up to him. Huh? You were lost. Ushijima slowly turned to look at you and the medical books on your lap. You were eyeing the higher shelves. He replied, If you need any, I can get them for you. Oh. You nodded and smiled. That's very kind of you, Ushijima. If it isn't any trouble, then could you grab that medical book on the higher shelf with the author named Taraski? Ushijima nodded and searched for the book. He found it and handed it to you. The two of you headed out of the bookshelves and back toward the table he was sitting at. He glanced as you read multiple pages of the book with a stern facial expression. That continued on for another good hour before the two of you unexpectedly had decided to leave at the same time. Ushijima offered to walk you home, but you refused. I can help carry your books, he added. I'm good from here, you replied and shook your head politely before chuckling. I don't know why, but seeing you today made me feel a lot better for some odd reason. Hearing that, Ushijima felt his heart beating out of place. He wasn't sure exactly what it was and how it occurred, but it felt nice. The following days, Ushijima would randomly appear and help you whenever your friends were not able to. He would carry you upstairs on his back when needed, or when things were out of reach, he got it for you. Because of this, a closer bond blossomed between the two of you. On one of Shiratorizawa's home practice games, you went to watch secretly and silently cheered for Ushijima despite all the other students loudly cheering. Once the game was over, he spotted you immediately and walked over. Ellen. He nodded and you did the same back. You are as rumors say. You smiled. Your left-hand attacks are amazing. He thanked you and told you to wait for him. Once everything was done and the gymnasium was clean, he walked out to see you, surrounded with girls in tracksuits. They seemed happy to meet you, and you were smiling back, but the look was something of desire. He watched as you would take glances at their leg and compliment their hard work while asking how the team was. It's not the same without you, Captain, one of them said. Your heart broke into pieces, but you held a strong smile. You'll lead the team well, Harriet. Take the team to nationals on my part, okay? Of course, Captain. They bowed before hugging you tightly, along with one of the other teammates. They backed away and saw Ushijima waiting behind you. They quickly excused themselves and left, leaving the two of you alone. You're the track team's captain? He asked. You replied, I was the captain. Ushijima saw that you were staring at your teammates run off back to their practice, and in your eyes was sadness. I want to run with them, you said as the edge of your eyes began to fill with tears. I still want to run. I want to take them to nationals, but I can't anymore. You begin choking on your tears as Ushijima watched in shock. He didn't know what to do or how to react. A person was crying in front of him, and he didn't know what to do to help. My legs are paralyzed. My legs are paralyzed, you mentioned before wiping away the tears in your eyes. The doctor confirmed that I'll never be able to walk again. You looked up at Ushijima and apologized. I'm sorry for showing you this side of me. He shook his head. Ushijima may not know how you were deeply feeling, but he knew one thing: the urge to win and go to nationals, the urge to be with a team and to lead them. It meant a lot to him, and he knew certainly that it meant a lot to you, but because of the accident, you lost your dream. Losing sight of your dreams is not the end, he mentioned and got down on one knee, so he was at the same eye level as you. It means to fight and find it again. You may not be captain anymore, but your dreams to go to nationals is what the team is carrying on their backs. It has become their strength to keep winning. Shocked by his words, you were in no condition to reply. He nodded and stood up and was about to excuse himself when you said something. Ushijima. You mumbled his name. He turned to look at you as you gave him your brightest smile. Let's go to nationals together, Captain.